Hello, everyone. This is a presentation on AI enhanced consulting, how you can make your clients make more money using AI. And so you can pause the video here to see a little bit more about me and what it is that I've accomplished. But this is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking with you through my top list of AI tools that your clients can benefit from. We're going to be talking about a new feature released by OpenAI that can help leverage your expertise as a consultant and will make ChatGPT significantly more effective for you. And we're going to be talking about using AI for automation and the engineering mindset. So let's dive right in. Feel free to scan this QR code if you would like the newest version of the slides on the screen. And let's start with AI tools. What can you introduce into your client's business? What are some of the AI tools out there? Now, we're going to be going through the tools here relatively fast, but the point here is to be raising your awareness of the solutions out there on the market. Because the reality is, the power that AI can unleash for businesses is overwhelming. Most entrepreneurs, they're not even aware of its potential. They know ChatGPT, but that's really it. And as consultants, our power often comes from our awareness of the client's problems and our awareness of potential solutions. So what you can introduce to your client gives you significant value inside of their eyes. What can you introduce to your clients that they don't know that can make them more money? So let's talk about that. Well, there are about a bajillion AI tools out there, and that's really the problem. We are overwhelmed with the number of AI tools out there, and the reason why is because tools like OpenAI, their ChatGPT, Stable Diffusion, other models out there, when they were built with great API service in mind. So they were built so that their APIs were relatively cheap, very reliable, and very easy to use by developers, which means really any developer can build their own wrapper around these tools and call it like it's their own app. So this particular website, this particular AI aggregator has counted 36,000 AI tools released in 2023 alone. These are too many tools. So let's talk about what are, in my opinion, some of the top tools. And what you can see here is the top 50 Gen AI web products as of June 2023, just to give you a little more of a sense of what is capturing the market. But what are the top tools that are actually useful for your clients' businesses? Well, it will obviously depend on what your clients' businesses are, but I would recommend the following. The first one is Browse AI for scraping. This is a app that will allow you to scrape data in real time from any website you want. It's good for monitoring lists or databases in real time. You just plug in the website link, scrape the data that you want, and then you're going to get a spreadsheet filled with that data in real time as that website updates. Very, very helpful. And utilizing AI in order to more cleverly scrape the website and make sure that you're actually getting the data that you want. Another tool I recommend is Midjourney. Now, Midjourney, I think a lot of people watching this video are already aware of, but they don't know its power for creating business assets and marketing assets. So what I recommend my clients to do is to go into the Midjourney gallery and to browse the options out there. So here you can see searching for website designs, and you can see that there are full-blown website templates that have been made by Midjourney. I shouldn't say templates, but things that could be converted into website templates, marketing assets that can be posted onto social media, YouTube thumbnails that can be used for YouTube videos. The number of business assets and marketing assets that you can make with Midjourney is really quite spectacular once you know how to browse their gallery to get inspired. Best of all, when you're searching these images, you can see the prompts that were used and the seed images that were used to generate them, which means you're fully equipped to replicate them yourself. Midjourney is also releasing new features all the time, and with some of the newer features out there, it's now possible to generate images with text and also images using your own face if you like with Midjourney blending. So Midjourney is constantly releasing new features that is giving you more and more control of exactly the images that you want to generate, and it can be extremely powerful for your clients to be aware of this, especially if one of their bottlenecks is creating graphic art for their marketing efforts. Now I'm going to blast through a couple of video editing tools. This is very helpful if your clients are producing videos as part of their marketing campaigns. If they're creating content that is more information-based, I recommend using a tool called Descript, which allows you to edit a video by editing the script of that video. So when you upload it onto their platform, you get the script, And by editing the script directly, you automatically edit what shows up on the video. You can also auto-generate captions. You can remove sections, even add in new words into the script depending on how long, and the video will automatically adjust based on that. Very, very helpful. Another video editing tool is Runway. I don't know if I would call it an all-in-one video editing tool, but it definitely streamlines some of the best AI video editing tools out there, allowing you to do things like removing background, erasing parts of video, converting one video to another video style. Really, the number of things that you can do on Runway with AI is really staggering when it comes to video editing. And so highly recommended if you're creating less information-based videos, but more entertainment-based videos. Runway is a really good tool for that. Next, video call summary tools. So I think a lot of consultants are already aware of this, and in fact, it's already become a pretty inundated part of the market. There are a lot of tools out there that will take your call recording and create a summary of it and transcribe it for you. But what are the best tools out there right now? Well, I will share with you both what I think is the tool that generates the highest quality right now, but I'm also going to give you my long-term prediction. So the best tool right now, I would say, is Fathom. Its results have been the highest quality from what I have gathered. It's just better at highlighting the key takeaways and summarizing things in a way that's really useful to review. But I would say that this is a race constantly going on, and I wouldn't actually bet on any of these in the long term. Instead, I would bet on Zoom's summary feature. The reason why is quite simple. Zoom has the most data compared to any other tool out there on the market. Zoom can record everyone's meeting notes and has access to everyone's recordings, whether they're using the service or theoretically whether they're not. Though I believe in their privacy policy, they claim that they are not. But nonetheless, they clearly have access to more data than any other tools out there on the market. And that data and their funding, I think, will mean that they will be the long-term winner. I highly recommend to my clients that they set up the Zoom summary feature by default, which you can see here, so that every time you start a Zoom meeting, the summary tool will already be on. Next, for writing tools. If your client's business has to generate a lot of text, whether for social media, blog articles for SEO, or really any other content production requirements when it comes to generating a large amount of high quality text, I recommend getting a tool like Jasper or Copy.ai. Both of these tools really are just running off of ChatGPT on the back end or tools similar to ChatGPT, but they are very useful for streamlining the content writing process. Some of my favorite features from Jasper is that you can give it a style guide or a sample of your written content so that it can write in a voice similar to yours. And it has a lot of templates on its platform for writing all sorts of standard text content like social media or blog articles. Copy.ai is also very much in the running and is the other tool that I would recommend. I would say that they're pretty neck and neck, and the marketplace is pretty inundated with quite a few of these. Copy.ai and Jasper, for me, have consistently high quality, though, even though there are cheaper tools out there on the market. Next, let's talk about potential Chrome extensions in order to make employees more effective and productive. So there are Chrome extensions out there that basically allow you to bring ChatGPT with you on any website that you go. A lot of browsers are already building this directly into the browser itself, like Opera. But my personal favorite is going to be the Chrome extension Harpa. I like Harpa for a couple of different reasons. One is that their privacy policy is quite clear and is quite strong. I've also emailed them directly and confirmed they are GDPR compliant, and they gave me a short walkthrough of how the data is handled. I can't give my official stamp of approval as I've not actually read their entire code base, and I don't believe their code base is actually open source, but it looks like privacy is very much top of mind for their platform. And it also has really clear UI UX, which makes it very easy to summarize the websites that you visit, summarize YouTube videos, and also create content for you, such as writing emails or really any type of content that you would like to create. You can actually see here the pop-up that appears, and this changes depending on which website you're on and how you are interacting with it. Definitely recommend Harpa as one of the stronger Chrome extensions out there. And I would say it's not really a market leader yet, but it is, I think, punching above its weight. And the last AI tool to give you a glimpse into the capabilities out there is going to be Looka. So Looka is a platform used for creating brand and style guides and also creating logos. It actually typically starts with creating a logo. And the reason why I like it over some of the other AI tools out there that create logos is that their work pipeline, I think, is a little more intuitive, where you pick the logos that you already like and give some examples, and then it creates for you multiple versions and allows you to also do the fine tuning on the back end. So definitely a good platform if you are looking to create a brand guide using AI or want to jumpstart a brand guide creating process, even if you're working with experts. And as my father always said, give a man a fish and feed him for a day. Teach a man a fish and you lose a valuable business opportunity. So I would want to teach you guys how to fish, and I would highly recommend the website futuretools.io, which is, in my mind, a very intuitive database of AI tools out there. So pretty much anything that you think that AI could be used for, you can search on Future Tools and find the right tool for the job. And now, lastly, the bonus tool that I would like to highlight from OpenAI itself. They've released a feature called custom GPTs, and I think that this tool could be a very big boon specifically in the world of consultants. The reason why is that you can now build a chatbot very easily with your own IP and your own material, really creating a ChatGPT version of yourself. You can then give access to that to your clients. And additionally, even if you don't want to give it to your clients and instead just want to use it yourself, you can have it ingest data about your clients and then query it, basically using it as a brainstorming buddy. Let's talk about that feature right here, and I'll give you an example. So here you can see a custom GPT that I created called Consultant Companion. The way it was created is using the following form. So you can create it just using a chat interface like this, saying, create me a chatbot that will help consultants brainstorm solutions for their clients. Now, I'm not going to enter this because I already went through this process, but it would then automatically modify the configuration based on that. It has a name and description, and most importantly, the instructions. So the instructions are probably the most important part of the process because you can describe exactly how you want the AI to behave. If you want it to check the knowledge base very, very often, you can tell it to do that. If you want it to generate lots of images, you can tell it to do that. If you want it to respond in a particular tone of voice or give, long-winded answers, or to only answer questions in bullet points, you can do all that from the custom instructions set. Conversation starters, not so important in my opinion. Then we come to the knowledge base, and the knowledge base is really the game changer and the newest feature. This is something that other companies have had access to for quite a while. Pinecone was a tool used by developers to build this themselves, but now with it being accessible to the public directly in custom GPTs, I think is a big game changer for non-developers. So all that a knowledge base is a knowledge base that AI can look information up. So if you ask it a question whose answer is inside the knowledge base, it will first look into that knowledge base before answering that question. This is incredibly powerful because if two consultants built two different chatbots and they were both running off of GPT-4, but they had different information in the knowledge base, whether that was information about the client's business, potentially their business KPIs or metrics, or it was just information about that consultant's approach to helping their client's business, those chatbots would give very, very different answers. And then, of course, you can also give it web browsing, DALL-E, image generation, and code interpreting functionality. You can also give it actions, which if you are a developer and are building a backend for your chatbot, so for instance, if you want to book a call for you or send an email for you, you could build all that functionality on the back end and then give the chatbot access to that functionality. For most consultants that aren't also developers, this is not going to be the area you use, but it is quite powerful. So let's give an example of that. Let's say that you had here material with your IP. You could ask, what is the coaching cycle? And here it tells you even, the PDF that was used to create the answer, walks through the material, and can answer questions about the material in the knowledge base. I think this is going to be extremely useful for consultants that want to create a second version of themselves or give an upsell access, because you can give access to this to specific users that also have ChatGPT Plus. So I think this could be a real game changer for some consultants that want to be AI first in their strategy. I also think this would be very helpful to just upload mass information about a client and then use the ChatGPT as a brainstorming buddy or a strategy consultant as you're going through trying to create a plan for the client's growth. All right. With that, let's now talk about automation, the engineering mindset. This is something that I am absolutely obsessed about when it comes to AI. So everything we've been talking about so far has been about giving team members access to AI tools to make them more effective. But what if we took it a step further? What if we asked ourselves, how can we use AI in order to automate steps of a process to free up the humans to do more of their best work? So I call this the engineering mindset. The engineering mindset starts off with mapping out the business processes. So you can see here is an example of a business process used by one of our sister companies, 2XU, in order to sell clients on VA services and then hire premium level VAs to support those clients. It starts off with booking an appointment call. Before the call actually takes place, the sales call, you do research on the client, have the sales call, and then onboard the client before handing off the material over to recruitment, because recruitment has to actually recruit the talent that the client will be working with, create the job description and questionnaire, reach out to potential applicants, evaluate them if they're qualified, and then go through the interview process before actually onboarding the client. Just like most businesses, there's a lot of manual work inside these steps. But what if we took a different point of view? What if we ask ourselves, how can AI automate this process? Well, there are a lot of tools out there that could be used to automate different steps of this process. But how do you know which step is the right tool for automating or augmenting with AI? There are two things you need to look at when you're looking at a particular step of a process. You need to ask yourself, does that step have clear inputs and clear outputs? And you need to ask yourself, is this step causing pain? What do I mean when I say clear inputs and outputs? The inputs and outputs need to be clear, digitally accessible, and plentiful. In the modern day, AI can really complete any task, no matter how complicated it is, if there is very clear inputs, very clear outputs, lots of examples, and it's digitally accessible. AI at this point is, I would say, a black box that can solve just about any problems if these criteria are met. And the better and better AI we create, and the more and more tools out there on the market, the more and more true this becomes. But if the steps are unclear, or if the inputs and outputs are unclear, where it's unclear exactly what's trying to be accomplished, it's unclear exactly what has to be received in order to accomplish a task, or there's no examples of it being done, or it's something that AI can't even access, maybe something in the real world, or something that the AI doesn't have the sensors for, or the ability to interact with, well then yeah, AI is not going to be the right tool for that job. But if it is the right tool for the job, you still have to ask yourself, is this something you really want to automate? Is it currently causing you some sort of a problem? You don't want to waste time solving problems that aren't there. For me, I think about problems in 4 different dimensions. One is that step of the process that is reducing the throughput for growth. If so, it's a bottleneck. Is it currently the bottleneck for our growth? 2, is it crappy and just boring work? Is it the kind of work that we would want team members or ourselves going to work every day solving those kinds of problems? Or is it kind of boring or just not very fulfilling? Is it expensive? Is it using valuable resources? Is it a step that is error prone where we're getting consistently bad results? These are steps that you should be looking to first when automating and augmenting with AI. Once you've selected the step, it's actually time to automate it. And the best tools for that are Zapier and Make.com. Zapier, I would say, is the market leader, but I recommend Make.com because Make.com is better for engineering longer, more multi-step processes, which is what we're going to be exploring today. And I would also say Make.com, after you build with it, I would say it's a little more intuitive, but it does have a sharp learning curve. So if you are already comfortable with Zapier, feel free to continue with that. Or if you're not sure which one to pick, you can experiment with both. So let's pick a step. Let's pick a step here that we want to automate. Let's go with doing research. So if you remember, this is a step after the customer has booked an appointment, but before you have a sales call. And let's ask ourselves, is this a good step to automate? Well, what are the inputs? What are the outputs? The inputs is the customer's email, very consistent, always there and always in the same format. You have the customer's company name, because maybe you put that as one of the questions that they have to fill out before they book the call. And you can take any additional notes on the purpose of the call. Now, the reality is most of the time the prospect is going to leave that blank. So we sadly can't really rely on that. And the output is, well, first of all, implicitly or explicitly, the salesperson needs to make a decision to proceed or not. And the second output is that the salesperson is informed about the prospect's background and therefore can have a better sales call. The process is a salesperson has to comb through Google, LinkedIn, social media, etc., in order to get the data. The pain, if we evaluate is this step worth automating, the pain is pretty decent. It's not a high bottleneck because the sales calls will happen anyways, but it is kind of boring work. It's not super crappy work, but it's pretty boring. But it turns out that this step is often very, very expensive, at least for the company that we were doing this for 2XU, because the founder was doing most of the sales calls. So it's expensive for the founder to be the one to do this kind of research, and therefore it was often breaking down and often skipped. So let's ask ourselves, how can we automate this with AI? So we could build a process like this with make.com. Quick disclaimer, in reality, a lot of these steps would have more than one module inside of it, but what's shown here is simplified for brevity. It's a realistic depiction of the flow, however. Just know that some of these steps would have more than one module in order to capture them. Let's break down what we could automate with make.com and with AI here. Section 1 is just starting the process. Section 2 is doing the research, and Section 3 is transforming and delivering the data to the founder or to the salesperson. Section 1 starts the process. The very first module in make.com is going to be a Calendly module, because this is where the prospects book the calls. So the prospect books an appointment and it triggers the chain. This whole process, you can see it can be built directly into make.com. And it starts off when the Calendly is booked. The next step is that make.com checks the CRM. In this case, we use HubSpot for it. Checks the CRM if the prospect is already there. If not, it creates a record for that contact, or if that prospect is already there, it just updates that contact information. Next, it does some independent research. We can use Phantom Buster in order to scrape that person's LinkedIn using the email to return the first result and scrape everything on that prospect's LinkedIn. We can use Apollo. Apollo is a very useful tool. Essentially, it provides a lot of services, but we use it like a data broker company where you can get information on that prospect. For instance, what company they're associated with, how many employees that company theoretically has. You can also get to more of their contact information. Just a very, very useful tool. And you can use a tool like relevance.ai in order to scrape that company's website. So once, because we have their website from Apollo, or if the prospect gave it to us directly, we can scrape it with relevance in order to get a returned summary about what that company is about as it's displayed on their website. Once we have all that information, we can load it up into the CRM. And we can then create a report written by AI, because when we get this report, it's going to be a whole bunch of separate data points that will be hard to summarize and synthesize. That's where ChatGPT comes into play. We send all this data to ChatGPT and get a summary and or an official opinion if the sales call should be proceeded with or not. We send that data to Craft My PDF, which is just another module, and we will then give ourselves that report via email. And this email could be sent immediately when the prospect books a call, or it could be sent just hours before the call, almost like a reminder to the salesperson. Very, very useful process if the salespeople are not doing this step or not doing it very, very effectively. So that's one example. What's another example we could use for automating the manual steps of this process? Well, let's look at evaluating the candidates for the recruitment process. This is after we've created the job description, after we've already started reaching out to potential applicants, but it's before the first initial interview is booked. As always, inputs and outputs. What's going on here? Well, the inputs are we get the candidate's resume. It's in a PDF or a Word doc format. That's very consistent. We get the candidate's form submission. We used to use Google Forms for this, but now we use JotForm. But we get their submission. We have the job description associated with that job role, and we have any additional notes about the minimum requirements that we get from the client. The output is we decide to proceed or not. We either send them a decline email or we send them a templated booking email with a Calendly link. The process is that we have to review the applicant's information and compare it against the job description and the client's notes. And what is the pain? Well, in this particular instance, the pain was extremely high because hiring talent was actually the bottleneck for 2XU when we were doing this process. It was the number one bottleneck for growth. It was very crappy and repetitive. Its expense was not super high for the recruiters based on an hourly rate, but it was still the bottleneck for growth. And I would say actually when we implemented this, it actually was breaking. I wrote down not breaking here, but I would say this process was breaking down because applicants were not consistently getting responses. So sometimes they would be declined, but they never received a decline email because the recruiters were just kind of overwhelmed with how many moving pieces there were. And a lot of people were just slipping through the cracks. So how can we automate this process? Well, it can look a little something like this. Let's break this down into sections. It starts off with getting information, making the decision, and then contacting the applicant. So step one, getting the information. Well, Jotform kicks off the entire process. Once Jotform is submitted, make.com is triggered, and it gathers that information from Jotform before proceeding. The next step is that we get the job description information. In our case, we use Notion for storing all of our job descriptions and also our applicants. We're big Notion fans for processing data and storing data. So we get the job description from Notion, which gives the AI necessary context when going on the next step. We then send that information to ChatGPT in order to get an official opinion. So by using ChatGPT's assistant feature, you can use custom functions. If you actually remember when I was talking about here, the custom actions, even if you do not create code for these actions, you can still have the AI respond with what is essentially a JSON format, which allows you to get much more consistent results in the format of how ChatGPT responds, which means you can simplify its answer just a simple yes, no. Using custom functions, we were able to standardize results from ChatGPT and then use that as a trigger point for the next step of the process, which is sending the applicant either a decline, a rejection letter, or a scheduling email to take on the next step. Just a little note about this process, and because I think we as consultants will come across this very, very often, these types of situations. When we were first going through this process with 2XU, their main problem was not that they really needed AI. It was that they needed to standardize the inputs and outputs. Most of our time was spent with them with standardizing and simplifying how the inputs came in and standardizing and simplifying the outputs that came out, creating templates, standardizing the Notion database. And once that work was done, adding in the AI was remarkably simple and remarkably easy. And the punchline after doing this process with 2XU is that they were able to triple the number of applicants they were able to hire every single month, which led to them doubling the business in just one quarter. So AI can definitely make a big impact onto your clients' businesses. And those are just some of the steps you can automate with AI. At this point, that's the end of the presentation. Feel free to scan the bit.ly link in order to get access to these slides. Thank you guys so much.
Hey, you made it to the video. I knew we were friends. I knew I could trust you. If you really liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, we're not friends anymore. Make sure to leave your comments down below.